This episode, we sat down with ZedGuru. For those of you who don't know, ZedGuru is the founder of the ZedGuru Podcast and runs the ZedGuru website. On the podcast, he covers all the latest news and information and Zed updates, also while interviewing some of the brightest minds in the Zed Run community. On his website, you can find tools and resources, blog posts and information, and also a directory of different places to get information from. He's also the founder of the Genesis 1% Club. The first rendition of that, you're able to buy 1% ownership in a Z2 Genesis Nakamoto, and you get paid monthly royalties and distributions based on the profits of that horse. So in this episode, we cover things like what it's like to be a content creator, how he got started in the podcasting space, and just information distribution in general. Some of the things that we enjoyed and some of the struggles we see in Zed Run, because we all know they're there. But and a lot of things that we look forward to coming here in the near future. So hope you enjoy this episode. All right, ZedGuru from the ZedGuru Podcast, and also ZedGuru.com, which there's a lot of resources on there. I don't think a lot of people realize, other than just the podcast.
Yeah.
What came first? Was it the whole podcast idea, or was it the whole building a resource that was a one-stop shop for the community?
Yeah, so really where it started was honestly in the Discord. Was kind of the fact that I was in there. I was at a job that really did not require any amount of effort at all, to be honest. So that's how I got started in Zed, is that I had basically 8 hours of free time each day, and I was like, how am I going to fill this free time? And Zed is really what I found to do it. But so I would start, we'd be having discussions in there, and almost a year ago now, as we're recording, it was in April of 21.
Crazy.
And yeah, for real. But those discussions were, so it was a lot different than it is now if you go in the general chat now. But it was a very focused group of people. There were these big overarching kind of strategy conversations, and I just thought to myself, there's people that aren't coming in here and aren't having these strategy conversations. And that's where I was like, well, I should at least put this on a website. It's a little bit better for long form thoughts. I was having these big paragraph posts and everything, and it's like, why don't I put a website out for it? And then the podcast just kind of came naturally as well, in terms of it's much easier to start. Actually, Premium Carrots, who is really more involved with Riot Racers now. I'm not sure if he's even really with Zed at all, but he was kind of the first guest that I had on, and the first person that was really like, hey, we need to I want to start this up, and I want to be a guest. And so the podcast last year was a really good place to kind of meet some people and get some good thoughts out. And it was, all in all, it's been a really good experience, on both fronts.
Now, have you done podcasting before, or was this kind of like your first toe dip into the content creation world?
I messed around with some audio recording, essentially. I'm a big sports person, so I had kind of done like test podcasts. I'm a big Pirates fan in Pittsburgh, unfortunately, I'll say. But I had done some things like that. I was like, should I start a podcast with this? When I was like watching every day and going to the games, about 50% of the time. And I've messed around with audio enough, but this was really my first product that I was putting out to a lot of people, I would say.
I gotcha. Yeah. How was that first episode, turning on the mic for the first time and knowing that you're going to be publishing out to the world?
It was good. So I mean, the format, I knew I could edit it down, and when I speak, I definitely needed to edit it down across the different times. So with Zed, and especially at the time with Zed, there was so much that I had to say, especially throughout those first episodes. It was like, oh no, like we just went 45 minutes. I was expecting like 20 minutes, and I'm like, we're sitting at 45, 50, and I'm like, I feel like we covered maybe half of what I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit overwhelming in that sense, but I knew that, I kind of had the editing capabilities to just like click and drag out the parts I didn't wanted. And, it's harder than people think, though. I mean, you can do it where you just record a conversation with somebody, put it out. That works. I was trying to, I wasn't really organized enough for that. So maybe I made a little bit more of the work for myself, but I would stop and start and say like, oh, we want to take this out. I would lose track of my thoughts. I would look up a horse, so in those first episodes, it really was, I kind of did create a little bit more work for myself than probably was necessary, but um, nothing too crazy or painful, just maybe a little bit more effort than people think, maybe.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand all of that. And for myself, I'm not overly comfortable with the editing aspect. So a lot of
Yeah,
times I try to do everything in one take. So like if
yeah.
I'm 28 minutes into a video that I think is going to roughly be 40 and I start messing it up or I lose my train of thought, most of the time I literally hit stop record and record all over and try to trim it down a little bit more
Yeah.
just through
And
one takes, and that's a pain in the ass.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And it just depends on, I mean, I think that most people that put things out are a little bit too harsh on themselves. And, those things, if I say, I will go back into footage and look, and mine is, so I just did it. I just caught myself doing it right here. And especially like the like I'm very heavy on that when I speak and repeating
Yeah.
myself. So it's tough. It just is. That's how I speak. And sometimes I think it could take away from content. You kind of have to walk that line between like, is this raw or is this like just bad? So,
Yeah.
it's definitely something where you search for improvement, but um, it is what it is. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and that's where I try to focus, improve on what I can control, and then everything else. I'm not sitting in a studio. I don't have studio mics. I'm not have a whole production team. If it ever gets that big, then I'll worry about being super precise, right?
Right.
Until then,
Exactly.
I'm not making movies. I'm just recording conversations.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, what kind of tips do you have for anybody trying to start out, whether it's equipment, setup, settings?
Yeah, in terms of, and especially, I really am more audio prone. Right now you can, well, I don't know if people will be watching this or not, but if they're watching, they can see that I just have the Apple earpods or
Mhm.
Apple headphones that I'm using right now. I did have a microphone, a USB microphone that I used. It's been giving my laptop a little bit of issues lately, so I mean, you do the Google searches, you can find USB microphones, and I use a program called Audacity, which is basically a free audio editor. There's also, I used a tool called Descript as I went a little bit further into it, which I was paying for, you can pay like 15 bucks a month or something, and it'll actually take your audio, turn it into text so that you can see what you're saying and then just go back in and you can see where you mess up in a sentence. So if I'm speaking and then I go blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, you can see where you said blah blah blah, and you can just highlight it, delete it, take it out. So when I found that, the editing
Oh,
process
wow.
got a little bit easier actually. And but Audacity, all in all, is fairly simple to use, especially if you're not going to mix too much um, audio kind of stuff. Buzzsprout is who I used for the host, and they actually have some tools to kind of balance out audio levels. And so, I mean, again, the audience wasn't huge. It wasn't like you said, like a mass production. So I wasn't, if something didn't sound perfectly mixed or perfectly, I think one time the intro music came out and it was a little bit loud, or I think the music was loud and I was quiet at the start, but I was like, you know what, people are gonna have to adjust to it if they want to listen. So
Yeah.
it's just tried to leave a little bit of that perfectionism behind. But yeah, the resources that I used: Buzzsprout to host it, Audacity as a free editor, Descript when I got a little bit more advanced into the to kind of seeing the that was a little bit better actually. Honestly, is record in Audacity, export it to Descript, DE script, and yeah, I mean, the microphones are out there. I use like Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income in the traditional business
Hey, I'm
world. He
happy
has a lot of, yeah.
you mentioned him.
He's a real one for sure. But so I've listened to him forever, and so I
Yep.
think one of the ones I got was like an Audio Technica. But again, any microphone you use, or even if you just use these headphones, like I don't think we sound bad on these. I started using this pretty much traditionally because it always works. It's very reliable, and I don't sounds. If it sounds 20% worse, everybody can live with it. I think so.
Yeah. Now, the first couple podcasts I was a part of, we literally used iPhones, Anchor, which is a free hosting software, and AirPods. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to make it complicated, but there's nothing wrong with upgrading as you go along the way.
Definitely.
Like I finally got a damn USB mic because I was picking up all the echo because this house's paint is super thick, so everything just reverbs everywhere.
It depends on your, I mean, as with anything in Zed, I mean, I know we're not doing a ton of strategy talk today, but I tried to say this on the Guru site for as long as I could, which is it all just depends on your goals and your finances, right? Like if it's intimidating to buy an $80 or $90 mic for something that you don't know if you're going to do more than 3 times, then use
Yep.
your headphones. Like if you plan out 26 episodes and you know you want to do this all year, like go buy a microphone. Like it
Yeah.
just depends on what you want to do and how you want to achieve it essentially.
Well, let's talk about strategy a little bit though, because it's been a common theme amongst pretty much everyone I've talked to is identifying how you want to play Zed and then build a strategy around that instead of trying to use either a cookie cutter out of the box or something that somebody who is an expert that just doesn't kind of apply to the way that you think or whatever. So, what have you seen with interviewing people and kind of your experience when it comes to developing personal strategy?
It's interesting because a lot of the people that you interview, I think this is what you were alluding to essentially. A lot of the people that you interview are the most serious players, the most probably financially invested players, and the people that are looking for advice on a website are usually the most casual, least financially invested players, right? So there's a really big disconnect in like the person that has, I mean, we've had Centribus on, we had, we had people with even like Chateau came on and he's like, well, I just have a bunch of like Genesis Finis. And again, this was earlier, but there's a lot of people right now that can't relate to that. So,
Yeah.
right now I think is an incredibly difficult environment, as we sit here in March 2022 for a new player, because you have the discovery aspect, which you have to be really careful about. You have a lot of free opportunities to potentially earn something, but at the same time, you have just kind of a lot of time and effort that could be lost too if you're not doing it correctly. So, um, it's a tough area right now for beginners. Most of the people that I've see giving advice that I really respect are saying, find something, run a fairly cheap horse. And I think the best tip of strategy that I've seen out there right now is like not to throw your entire budget on one asset right away. So if you do have a smaller budget, if your budget, and I'm not up on Ethereum prices, but point two is maybe like 500 right now or so, if I'm not too far
It's
off.
fairly close.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if you're saying I have 500 to throw into the game, you don't want to just spend that point two on one horse and just like go all in from the start, right? Spend $100, try to figure it out, see what's working, and try to adjust from there. I mean, honestly, with this environment, I've stopped giving out any kind of like buy this breed in blood or this is underrated or overrated. I mean, the changes that we see from them are so drastic right now. To me,
Yeah.
nothing is permanent. I don't have any, and that kind of speaks to probably some stuff that we're going to get into, but I don't have a ton of confidence that these huge shifts from update to update, it's really hard to tell people, we're about to experience a breeding update.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell people you should buy XYZ, and that's different from when I started last year for sure.
And that's part of the struggle too, being a content creator with it still being in beta. We don't like the term beta, but really they still are trying to figure everything out themselves. And like people
Yeah.
want me to give them clear direction. And that's why I'm very careful on my own content. Like I never tell anybody what to do. I kind of
Yeah.
just share my tools of thinking and how I'm asking questions and coming to resolutions and hoping that equips people with their own questions to ask.
Yeah.
Because almost every single one of my horse purchases timed the market improperly, and what looked like a great deal 10 days later was a terrible, terrible decision.
Right.
Like
Right.
my first two Genesis Buterins I bought, I think at 0.8 and 0.6, and neither of them were overly proven runners. So it wasn't like I was buying, a Saga Bolton or something.
Right.
So yeah, it's very hard to give advice in an ever changing environment.
And the only thing I'd add to that is Zed is certainly a game for the players right now. I mean, it's not, this is never something that you're going to be able to just buy a bred horse and it'll it'll escalate in price over time. I mean, it is really designed right now to the breeding and flipping. There are people that do it, but it's the margins, I understand, are not crazy by any means.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, they're razor thin margins, and for the most part, it's if you want to play the game, if you want to go heavy into that aspect, it's really for, I think, the racers right now and the people who are going to play heavy on the site. That's really who I see it for right now. As we're saying, it all can change quite quickly.
Yeah, because right now I'm only racing free races exclusively for tournaments, and it's
Yeah,
still like if I'm putting everything that I can qualify in to either go up or down, prepare for this tournament or the next, it's almost
right.
2 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah,
And like you said, like that's a lot of time for somebody new to come in and dedicate to a chance of progress. But at least you're able
right.
to do something. Because I think
Yeah.
back when we both started, there was really not a lot of free options to play. It was pay to play completely, and some of us earned and some of us didn't.
Yeah, it's this is the line that they have to walk. I mean, creating a working meta game for this size of an environment, and as it continues to grow for a bigger size environment,
Mm.
I don't want to be nitpicky, but the C1 Premier is a great example where they put $150,000 into that, and I don't hate the idea. I'm not against the idea. I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing, but it's not, to me, moving the needle in a huge way. Like, so when you see those kind of numbers, it's like wow, like that. It's hard to wrap your head around sometime of like how big the environment is getting already and
Yeah.
how much they need to do to affect all these different things. So
Now, kind of touching on that, there's been a little bit of drama that went on because of that event. How like I hate to put all the onus on the Zed team, but I think the
yeah,
community's shown that we're not going to follow anything that they don't force us to, even if it's in our best interest. Like when breeding first came out, Z1s were put into the stud for $76, same price as Buterins. When everybody could breed for that price, everybody bred every single horse in their stable and exponentially expanded the population, making prices what they are today.
right.
If it wasn't a runner, they just sold it to recoup their costs to do it again. So kind of being, on both sides of it, being able to talk to these people and interview them and stuff and be an active participant in the community. Like, do you put a lot of this responsibility back on Zed to essentially force us to play the game they want us to? Or do you think players need to start taking a little bit more responsibility to do their own diligence?
No, I mean, I think it's got to be on Zed, right? I mean, it's their environment, it's their ecosystem. As you said, like players are going to look for whatever advantage they have, and in this case, most of them didn't even know that they were
Yeah.
doing it, right? They've said it was buried, and now like I get the other side of this argument too, like for people saying there should be consequences, like they didn't follow the rules, because there's a ton of people out there who are like, yeah, I read every single word, I read the terms, I read what you could do, like who are these and so both sides have like a decent argument here. At the end of the day, the way to take all of that bickering away from the players is to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So and if at the very least, if they weren't going to do it themselves, to continuously put out the warning, right? Like, hey, this is a new
Instead of
rule. This is it
afterwards.
was because right, instead of 5 days in after, and what caused it, I assume, is the complaining about what was going on. So they continue to the communications have been a lot better. I think they can still strive to be out in front of things and kind of recognize what the warning signs are. But at the end of the day, this is a pretty small issue, to be honest. I know people were really fired up about it. It's not a world shattering either way about who, if they warn people, if they do DQ people, like the people they would DQ will survive, I think. If it's warnings, that's on Zed for if you want to be upset with it, I get it, but it's just it's a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, and I hate to be like the Zed apologist, I really do, but it's probably more minor than most people think, but that's where frustrations boil up for the community, is they have so many of these little minor things sometimes,
Yeah.
right? So when they build up on each other, and you're like, it feels like they mess this up and that up and this other thing, and it's like that adds up to a level of frustration, not just this, that's why you can't just excuse it as, oh, like little minor thing. It starts to build up the frustrations for people, and they want to think very long term, and I absolutely respect that, but they still need to have a level of respect for the current user. Just
Yep.
because, just because things are going to improve doesn't mean that we just abandon everything in the present. The people that are on the platform now kind of deserve that level of respect too. And maybe that's strong. I'm not trying to say, I don't know if they've been disrespected, but um, that's where I think about it. There, that's what I'll say.
No, it's been very obvious that they've been very long-term focused. They have
Yeah,
an AR app that they built before, the platform had 10,000 users on it, so you could play with your horse in real time. Like everything they've been doing is like 17 steps ahead of what the current environment is, it feels like. And like I, like you, I see both sides of it. I don't think in 2 years we'll ever talk about the first C1 Premier Cup.
no,
Um, and Zed's changed the rules going into a new tournament without announcing with the tournament announcement. By the way, we've edited what's going to
that's
happen. Go check out the terms and conditions first. Like just because you
that's
updated them doesn't. Yeah,
that's the issue, right? They needed to be. They know that they kind of conditioned people with so many tournaments in a row, so many things in a row. You can do this. You can do this. The site will let you do this. That's just all that needed to happen. It's just one little extra step of comms that needed to happen, and I assume they'll learn. They do learn. I mean, it does happen. Sometimes it
yeah.
takes a while, but they learn. Yeah.
So you kind of stepped away a little bit from the podcast.
Yes.
What exactly was that about?
Well, and I pulled up the podcast just to see
I think your last episode was in
where we
November.
left off. Yeah, it was, and it was in November, and it was the hour and 36-minute special
Mm-hmm.
where we have Cortez on. And basically what had happened is, and Cortez Crypto, he's always been well, not always, but in the crypto world, always been a good friend of mine, right? And we were just going back and forth, and we're like, this is crazy. Like all this stuff that's going on is like unacceptable and bizarre. And how could they be doing all of this stuff, right? Like that's where we were at with it.
Yep.
And we said, well, let's record. Let's kind of do like an open letter situation here and just say all of our concerns. And it was about communications, AMAs from the team, the basically the Redwood City Classic, which actually got worse after we recorded with the Sentinel stuff, and
Yeah.
we were upset that they didn't announce it, and like again, it even got worse. And so through that kind of 3-month period where people were just so upset. We were not getting any kind of communication from the team. Now, looking back at it, they have an excuse for it. They were onboarding a lot of people. They were not prepared for the explosion that happened. And you can put blame on the leadership, or you can not. However you feel about it. But um, it's just the instance of there was just this huge frustration and personal frustration on my part too, just for kind of what I expected, what I thought they weren't listening. And so let's say November, December, January, I'll put it, um really I was if I was tweeting, it was probably negative. If I was, if it just became a very negative space for me. So um that's kind of why I stepped away, because I didn't really feel like I had anything positive to contribute to the space. There were a few times where I picked up a microphone and started to record a little bit, and I was like, you know what, this is just me complaining. No one should listen to this. No one should want to listen to this. I was like, this is not going to be helpful for anybody.
Yeah.
And so basically I just kind of let it sit. It is in a comeback phase right now, because as everybody who likes to rage quit and get mad about Zed, I do really love the platform, and I do really love the game and the community surrounding it. But it just became a space for me personally where I had a few other things going on as well. It just became not a priority. It wasn't really providing me any joy to come in and like try to talk to somebody. And I just think those few months were really not a shining point by any means for the people in the system. I think there were just still a lot of frustrations.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the big tipping point where the snowball was being packed and started rolling down the hill. And I
Yeah.
don't know if a lot of those issues that came about then are fixed. We might just be a little bit more conditioned and accepting with the little bit of progress that we have made since then. But I'm happy that you're still back and you're talking about rebooting that up.
I think that here's the thing. I don't think that they're necessarily fixed, but it became, even like New Year's where they did the roadmap. Okay, well now we have the roadmap, and now we have some people starting to talk to us. So the difference that I see in Zed from November to right now, on March here as we record, we still don't have anything on the token right now. We still don't have anything on, a lot of some of our complaints are still not necessarily handled. But what we're getting is weekly updates from a communications team. So Ryan, I think, who they hired at Zed, has been fantastic. He's putting out these posts every week. They have a team that works with us as content creators, so that there's at least a line of communication. And they have Zed Gazette, who's kind of handling some of that between the creators and the Zed team. They have John Lee, who's been on Twitter and posting a lot of stuff about the breeding change and getting feedback from people. And there's just a few individuals who I think are doing a lot more. And you go back and compare it to October, where you have literally the CEO of the company talking down to the players, and just being rude overall. And I think that kind of shift is noticeable. And so the racing classes, I think, I don't want to go into everything that's negative. I think a lot of the race lobby, the classes, all these things do still have their issues, and they're very serious issues. And I hope the team kind of realizes how serious they are on a fun level, on a user fun level. There's a lot of negative, but
Yeah.
there's people involved that are listening. There's improvements on the edges, I would say, is how I would put it. And so that's why. And really the community, more so specifically than the team, is what's brought me back. The Pony Plug guys and a few others that are out there, like, those are the people that I have fun talking to. And so whatever the team does, that's cool. But I like talking to all my friends in the community, and that's really what happened a year ago. That's why I was having fun, and that's why I'm having fun again now.
Yeah, and talking about the community, like one thing that kind of blows my mind about Zed Run, kind of looking at anything else I've ever played or been a part of even, um, is the community resources, right? Like Know Your Horse, Haku, websites like yours that condense tons of information to, some sort of index or table of contents, or being able to sort through quickly what you need to find. Like
Yeah.
without those, like I don't even think there's a Zed Run anymore, because like they're not giving us anything, which I understand why they're not, but at the same time, like I feel like the community is literally the only thing keeping this thing alive.
There's a lot of these subgroups that have popped up, right? I mean, like, even the tools outside of the main ones. I think without the main ones, the functionality of the game would be really hampered, right? If we just
Oh
literally
yeah,
didn't have Know Your Horses and Haku, I mean, that would be really tough.
that'd be
It's
really
and
hard.
something would have popped up. But even if it wasn't as good as, I mean, those two sites are just so high quality. But then, you have the Zedge guys, and I mean, there's so many around the edges that I'm gonna forget exactly what they are as I'm speaking here.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there's
there's a
so
lot
many
of new ones
around
that are
the
really
edges,
interesting.
and there's ones popping up all the time. You have the
Yeah.
the Stacknax extension, obviously. Dan Shan as a tool creator, all these guys, right? Like, there's just so many different things that are out there, in different groups of people that are talking, and kind of the not guild aspect exactly, but those kind of things where you can see the groups of people that are forming, and it's a really strong bond. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah, it
So,
definitely keeps the game for me more playable, because I remember like before Haku, when Know Your Horse was pretty much the only like deep dive for actual horse stats, and it wasn't as smooth as it is now. Like it's a really smooth website now. Back in the day, it was the best we had, and it was still paying the butt.
yeah.
So it's cool to kind of see the community come together and build things, and then like you said, kind of band together with their ideas and build these little micro ecosystems within the game.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and those guys are awesome. I mean, that's to me, that's what I tried to set out to do, all that time ago, was like, if somebody's coming in, like let's give them the right advice. Like let's steer them away from the people. And again, when it was a smaller community, let's steer them away from somebody who wants to sell them a horse right away. Let's let them learn about stuff, and like excuse me, and like Chateau on YouTube right now is somebody else that I interviewed, and like he's absolutely killing it. And Bryce in Sangudo, who we talked to, I think I lost his podcast episode because I did it outside on a park bench, and then I lost it. But but Bryce has been like, he sits in beginner chat all day and just helps people, and is I guess working with Haku now, which is awesome for both parties in that regard. But those guys, like that's the kind of level where you see people. We saw people return horses when they got fat fingered. We saw people return, like at high rates. Like they're obviously, we've had bad actors through the space, but like for the most part, it's been tremendously goodwill acts from one stable to another. And I do think it's fairly unique in the online world. So you see some of the drama too, of course, but for the most part, it's 90+% helpful and fun and kind.
Yeah, I definitely, and it's kind of weird, right? Like, is it because of the type of people that are rebellious enough to get into crypto, to get into NFTs, to be early adopters, traditionally have that more of an openness to where they are willing to be kind and take that extra step for people? Or is this maybe just because we have something that we're coming together over, like cryptocurrencies and NFTs, that we act more like we should in the real world because we have something in common that's very visible. Like you own an NFT project, you see it in somebody else's wallet, automatically there's like this really weird bond that happens, even if you never talk to them, right? And it's something unique to this, almost like a jersey. Oh, you're wearing a jersey, I have the same jersey on. Like we're connected whether we know it or not.
Right. And I think it comes from a responsible place too. I mean, again, I can't sing the praises of Zed's specific community enough. Like I love everybody, and
Yeah.
I want everybody to know that. I think that it is a little bit specific because we'll see, like I think the negativity of people sometimes speaks to Zed's community, right? Because they don't just sit there and pump their bags all day. Like they want the game to get better, and they want excuse me, but they want these positive things. And I think it's just a good group. And maybe to your point, like we're all wearing the same jersey, we've all got the same kind of goals. I think that does bring a lot of bonding to the table for sure. Yeah. And I mean, hopefully if you want to have a successful project, I assume that's kind of one of the things that you need to have. You can't have divisiveness and fighting all the time. Again, I know we have our little dramas, but
Yeah, some days it's more high school than guild.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's just gonna
Yeah.
happen. There's
That's humans, right?
there's money on the table, and so at times it is gonna get competitive, of course.
Yeah. Now, outside of the podcast that you run and the ZedGuru website, you've also been a part of building out the ZedBets platform, which is also partnered with the March Madness event coming up.
Right.
What all can you
So
talk about on that?
yeah, and so I'll clarify very quickly because that is somebody else's name. So Sean is the one who ran ZedBets on Twitch. If anybody's seen that, Sean versus all. So just to make that real quick clarification, but I've been building the site at zeddraft.com, which is right now our big focus is this bracket challenge coming with the Pony Plug team. So Pony Plug, again, if you're in Zed and you're not watching Pony Plug, you are missing out on probably the best kind of viewing experience. They're going to have regular shows with like professional real world horse announcers coming on and calling the races. Like these guys are blowing it up like crazy. But the March Madness event specifically is a 64 stable tournament where we're talking about everybody. We're letting you print out a bracket and make your picks like you do March Madness, right? Like I want it to be on everybody's office desk. I've already been posting that on Twitter that everybody needs to have their bracket and advance their players. And it's just trying to add a level of fun to the game because at the end of the day, we feel it, right? Like, and again, it's not necessarily my event, but I've been working very hard with these guys to make sure it's a lot of fun. But we feel the grind of a daily tournament, right? Like, do you enjoy downclassing your horse for 3 days?
No.
No, nobody enjoys downclassing their horse, but that's a part of the game right now. But what people will enjoy is, if Mike and I are matched up and he's the 4 seed and I'm the 13 seed because my stable sucks, and getting to see if I can take him down in a 1-day matchup, right? Like that's just an interesting and a fun way to just add something to the platform. So that's what they try to do when they're hanging out on Twitch, they're calling races, they're having fun, and that to me is the bigger aspect of Zed, is the community, is what you bring to it. We saw some of the meetups last year, and it's just that's the big thing of the platform for me, is actually getting to connect with these people, getting to hear your name on a stable. And I tell you what, if like one of these upsets takes down an arbitrage or a WAGMI or whoever, if they do it like as a 16 over a 1, like everybody in the community is going to know about it, and that's what we want. We literally like want to have fun on the platform. Like it's sometimes it's funny that it needs to be said because they are a gaming experience, but we think that there's a lot of ways to add fun to what they're doing, just to be quite honest.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, and that's the weird thing too, right? Like Zed is at its core and what it is. Like if there was no money involved, this is something I probably would have done. I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
put as many hours in every single week as I do,
Right.
but it's something I probably would have. If it was a mobile app, it's something I would have on my phone that I'd be logging in, multiple times a day, just like some of the other dumb shit on my phone.
Right.
Like it's fun when it works.
Yeah.
And when it's moving.
Yeah, it's an entertainment product. I mean, there's no better thrill right now. We talk about the downclassing sucks and everything. The grind of it sucks, but when you see your tournament matchup, when you get through the quarterfinals, you earn a little bit of money. You see who you're up against in the semifinals. Like, there's no bigger rush than trying to figure out, like, can I pull this off? Can I get a third? Can I get it? Can I move through it? So, I think the platform remains incredibly exciting for the times where there are stakes and where there's something important going on. It's huge. It really is.
Yeah. Now, I did want to talk about the 1% Club because I saw when you originally posted that. That'd be early December, maybe before that.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting idea and kind of goes on the line of, find your own niche, play Zed the way you want to play it. So how did that come about, and can you explain it to people for those who don't know?
Yeah. So the 1%, I'm just gonna speak to the Genesis Nakamoto one, because that's the one that we have up and running. There's a couple others that are in their infancy right now that again have been pushed to the side a little bit temporarily, but we're going to be bringing them back here as they're starting up with sales. But so the 1% Gen Nat Club was basically a way to say, you can own the 1% of the profits of a top tier horse. So in this case, it's a Z2 Genesis Nakamoto. The one that we were able to purchase, its name is Fantastic High, and I got to bring in water the next time I record, apparently. But the idea was actually built in that kind of frustrating time period that we talked about earlier, and it was, what would the best use of maybe $150 or $200 in Zed be right now? And it was when the daily tournaments had just started and the Genesis were cleaning up all the money, right? It was Nakamoto's and Genesis, and I was like, well, the best use of your money wouldn't be to buy 2 Buterins, it would be to buy a Genesis Nakamoto. Well, you can't afford it. Well, let's split it out and give up to 100 people the chance to buy a part of the profits. So and what I did was, knowing that you could just kind of make anything into an NFT on Polygon, right, without gas, is we just got a little graphic, nothing too crazy. I think it looks fine, but we have just a little poker chip graphic, and every month we're paying out users depending on how many they own, right? So if you have one, you have 1% of the profits, whatever that horse earns in the month from racing, stud fees, and token allotment. When we get the token, right? They are getting that sent directly to their wallet. Now, the positives that people don't necessarily think about with that is, I'm racing the horse. So you don't have to log in to do anything. It's just going to show up in your wallet every month. So that it also combines some of the passive income and some of that aspect. Now, it's not for everybody. A lot of people want to play the game themselves, but it was just kind of a way to bring people together. It's another fun community, right? We have a Discord channel that's just for the purchasers of the token. So we get to kind of hang out in there and talk strategy and talk whatever, talk off topic stuff. It's fine. But they can also then sell this token at any time too. So you don't have to tie it up in the horse. We don't have to sell the horse if Mike wants to take his exit from it, and everything shoots up for the token, maybe you get 0.2 for it someday. So
Yeah.
to me, it was like build a monthly revenue for people, and right now, I'll be honest, it's not a huge monthly revenue. We're hoping that increases with the token. But the idea behind it being, you really shouldn't lose value over time as you hold this token. You should really be gaining value and getting a monthly payout from it. So it's been interesting for sure. And like I said, we were going to do some other ones as well, and I think that's still on the table, but I haven't been posting that much content, so people don't hear about it when I don't come on these things and talk about it. So
Right.
All in all, like I said, it's really just a way to say, hey, if I want to put some money into Zed, but I don't know that, and I don't know that much about it, then hey, I can buy this. It's very passive, and I have at least a piece of that top level appreciation. If you're really bullish on the platform, you think maybe it's going to increase in status. So
Yeah, no, it was definitely a unique idea. I definitely liked it. Is there any tokens left? Last I saw, you guys were well over 50% sellout.
yeah, so we're essentially sold out right now. I'd have to look to see. I think they were doing it for like 0.075, and that
Hmm.
looks to be where it's sitting right now.
Okay.
But that is people selling at market price. So like we finished our pre-sale on that. There's no lock on that price. Like if somebody buys those and they're gone, like it's all on users, whatever price they want to set at this point. That's where it'll sit over time. So if if people hold them, it's kind of like its own NFT in that sense, right? Like the price is
Right.
whatever people want to, if they want to sell it. Now of course it's very much tied into what a Genesis Nakamoto costs, right? Like if those tank, my tokens are going to obviously, the tokens of the club are going to come down as well, but it's all at market pricing at this point.
Nope, that's cool. And I do remember seeing posts for the other ones going up, and then I hadn't seen anything for a little while, so I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
those are
seeing those go back up too.
yeah, we're gonna start pushing those out a little bit. I wanted to do a Genesis Zabo and a Z1. Those have seen a little bit weaker response, I think, just because I haven't been pushing it as hard, and we're gonna come back around to it. And I want to kind of set those up for people as well, because I think there's an incredible level with the Zabo. If you look at the rarities, I think that's a big hit, and the Z1 obviously speaks for itself.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I think everyone right now too is just kind of like in a holding pattern, waiting for a couple of these changes, like you said, the token to come out, the breeding change that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
So
Yep.
timing will
Absolutely.
definitely be interesting.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we could get priced out on those too, right? If the Genesis skyrockets, I mean, we could absolutely end up getting priced out on that. And there's information on the ZedGuru site, but it
Yeah.
just goes back as a refund if it's not funded fully, or we end up never getting a horse from it. So there's really no risk to the user on those when you're looking at buying in. If Z1s shoot up to 100 ETH tomorrow, then you just get your money back. It's just how it goes. So
Yeah, I'll make sure I include all the links and everything too for everybody
yeah,
interested. Check those out.
good deal. Good deal.
So what is it that you're excited about rebooting and getting back on the content creation side?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to bring the podcast back in general. I think it is fun to kind of get these different viewpoints and get them on a regular basis, be able to talk about the game. I think that they're going to kind of start sorting out these racing woes that they've had. They've really been hitting on the scheduler lately. And the actual racing experience, I think they're very aware. They've started forming committees, so they say, about the racing experience for people, and I think they know that it sucks. I think it sucks. I don't know if they think that or not, but I think they know the pains in racing, And, so overall, I'm excited for the platform, right? I'm excited to see what the token can do. I'm excited to see what the team can bring to the table. And I just want to, I want to get back into podcasting. It's a lot harder than it was 6 months ago to play this game. And so, people, we need to keep talking about it so that people can kind of jump in and figure these things out. And so, I'm excited. My life has settled down a little bit. I went through a move. I kind of moved across the country. And so I'm excited to just kind of get back into the regular rhythm of putting the show out and getting nice and less nice feedback from everybody. It's all a nice little cycle that happens when you start putting out stuff. So I'm excited overall.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you back because I definitely enjoyed the episodes, and even though the last one was a little bit longer, it was a good conversation just to have it flow and get honest perspectives about what was happening. Because I think in most communities, like you said before, like we all care, so we don't sugarcoat as much as probably most content creators do in other realms. Zed's we're pretty open.
We're very open, and I think that caused some of the friction early on with Zed. I mean, they can they can't be too scared of us at a certain point, right? Like we can get critical. That's okay. Like just take it. Like don't take it. They shouldn't take it personal. We're the ones that get emotional because we're the fanatics about the game, and it happens. We get frustrated. I've said things that I preferred I hadn't say, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. And what can you do? But you apologize, you move on. You're like, hey, that wasn't supposed to be personal. That wasn't supposed to be that emotional. But you go at it, and like we're the ones that are like out there like playing every day, talking to people every day, and it's like like you get emotional about something when you invest in it. It's like a sports team, right? Like why did they go for it on 4th and 1, but then they just ran up the middle? Like that makes you emotional, right? I know there's a lot of people hearing that are like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like they didn't, so it's just what comes with the territory, and hopefully they don't get too scared about it by any means.
No, I definitely agree, and I appreciate you coming on, Brian, and kind of giving us a look and sharing a little bit of your story because it's been a while, and we're gonna be happy to have you back.
Yeah. I mean, for everybody listening, stay tuned. We're gonna boot the podcast up here, and ZedGuru Podcast coming to you soon. How about that?
Let's raise that of you.
Yeah, thank you.